What is going on, YouTube? It's your boy, Society Bottom. Alright, I'm not doing that voice the whole time. So, this is the director's commentary for Awake Act 1, The Modern Prometheus. This is a nice little quote here from Freddie Perlman's book, Against History, Against Leviathan. The beast being referred to there is civilization itself, which Freddie also refers to as Leviathan, thus, hence the title. Very interesting book. I'd highly recommend it. So, this track in the background, this is an original one. You can get all of my original tracks in the Project Forge server for free. They're pinned in the Your Songs channel. But this track, the title of it is In the Beginning. And all it is, it's basically just like 3 notes, but it just keeps going deeper. It's like, na, 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 and then it repeats itself. Na, 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 na. It just keeps going deeper.
Get on the ground!
And the little bit of the high-pitched kind of E. So, yeah, we open right up with cop beating the shit out of a woman. And there's midnight dubstep. Look at this!
Are you fucking kidding me?
That's me.
They sent the National fucking Guard.
Fucking Morgan. There's like 66 uses of the word fuck, and I want to say like 15 of them are just from that one character.
Don't get me wrong. The cops around here are like
There's
high school lockers.
Pudgy Hamster as Gerald and Nor Films as Toby there.
Half them can even read. These guys are the definition of shoot first, ask questions later.
Fuck off, you fascist motherfuckers.
And that's me again right there.
Fucking protest. Why do you need fucking assault rifles? We can't even own guns, let alone carry them.
Yeah, no.
Shameful.
God,
Shameful!
I can't even get mad at them for that.
Right? What the hell?
Homie's spitting straight facts though.
Oh, what?
Like,
I love acting as the military wing of the police department.
Nah, believe it or
you
not,
know,
it hasn't grown on me.
he might be like, you know, a little bit forceful or whatever. You know, people might be like, oh, he's annoying. Oh, he's, you know, he's got a potty mouth. But he's kind of right. You know,
Jesus.
there's Aiden
Stay here.
sneaking his way through.
I'll be right back.
Gerald, we have orders.
Just gonna talk to him, real quick.
Gerald!
This scene is like 3 or 4 different games all cut together.
Grenade!
There we get the loud ass sound design. I really wanted like the explosions and the gun sounds to really fucking crack through everything else. And that track is called Trauma, and you'll notice it plays whenever like a traumatic experience happens, or like whenever somebody's reliving some trauma from the past, at least for the most part. That's what I was going for. There's Midnight again. Absolutely killed it. Every role he played, he was amazing.
That's right, Ryan.
That's me right there, playing Amy. Now, I love this picture because it's directly contradicted by what John Sullivan says right here. The legal expert and former police chief, John Sullivan, says about it. He says, you know, when he put his hands in the air, like, when his hands weren't even in the air, and he thinks that he was trying to steal the cop's taser when he was, like, a solid mile away from him. We got Space Marine here, as, the character's name is Bree, but I don't think at any point I actually like show what her name is or anything like that.
Signed the most sweeping gun control bill in American history into law, making private sales, ownership, and manufacturing of firearms a federal crime. The bill passed the House and Senate with a supermajority following an incident in Los Angeles where
this punchline here, like, I wanted to come up with like the most preposterous scenario. Like, of course, she lists off like property damage as being equally important to the loss of human life, specifically of infants. No. He opened fire with a rocket launcher in a fucking nursery. There's the most absurd possible scenario.
Terms and conditions right now, as Apple is legally not liable for any undesirable side effects.
Yeah,
following its
Red
sanctions.
Sentiment Films doing his little cameo there. Low-key implying that cell phones are chips injected into people's brains in the future. And that's actually
They need me, Jane.
Danielle, the voice actor for Kaylee, playing Jane here.
The left is now coming to your house to mutilate your children's genitals and spread fecal matter on
Tucker
your
Carlson
lawn.
here.
The president is preparing to give a speech. We're gonna go to that now.
And here we go. Holy Junkie absolutely killed it as the president. It was so perfect for it. Like, I don't know. It was just, it's immaculate.
My fellow Americans,
Like,
there are
that
no
voice
words
is
to
just,
describe
mwah,
the
it's
peace
perfect.
in all of our hearts.
Perfect for the character.
I hear this news not as a president, not as a politician.
And
But as a
you'll
father,
notice here, whenever you see
scientist
through
who
the
served the
CNN
Russian
camera,
military.
all the colors are really
The
like
line
saturated and
sets this
bright.
act of
But then when it cuts to,
anarchist terrorism,
you know, the
these
non-diegetic camera,
no, these heroes
like right here,
laid down their
it's
lives
like
out of
desaturated,
sheer love for
you
their
know,
country.
heavily
I've had the
contrasted. Like,
opportunity
you can
to
see
speak
right
with
there,
Sergeant
really,
Richards and Corporal Matheson.
it's kind of jarring. I wanted to go
They
for
told
that
me
effect. I
they were
took
deeply
inspiration
committed
from
to
The
their
Boys
duty
for
to their
that. It
nation.
was like,
It was my highest honor.
I don't
to
know,
speak with
it's
them
sort of
directly.
like, I guess
This is
it's like a
problem
commentary
that's
on how
become
the
all
media,
too common in the
you know,
daily
makes
lives
everything
of
bright and
American
flashy
people.
to
Whether it's a
keep your
protest,
attention and,
a
you know,
nursery,
amuse people with the
golf
bright
course,
colors, you know,
or the
jingling keys in
Secretary
their
of
face
Defense's wife's house.
kind of thing.
These attacks must be stopped. The American people live in fear every day. The time has come.
I love
for
the part
action.
where
The
he's reading out the
American people
teleprompter.
want
It's like,
meaningful
these men,
action
dot, dot,
against an
these
anarchist,
men, dash,
terrorist
no,
threat
these
and the
heroes,
production
dash,
of improvised
heroes,
explosive devices.
italicized.
What the fuck were you thinking?
There's Morgan again,
I'm
doing what he does best, just shouting swear words.
fucked us.
I'm sorry.
And I used a modded version of Forge to be able to raise that door up for that shot.
How long were we supposed to sit here with our thumbs up our asses, huh? The cops are murdering people in the street.
Oh, I could do it without having team colors turned on.
Had more than 10 fucking people involved, Aiden. We weren't ready for something that
You're gonna
bad.
see, like,
You could have killed a protester. What the fuck is wrong with you?
like,
Wait!
the whole thing here is like, you know, Morgan has a better point than Aiden does, but like, you know, Aiden's not exactly wrong with what he sees as a problem, and it's just his solution to it isn't exactly the most productive. All it really does is land him in prison, basically. Like, it's midnight again, and of course Numbskill playing Aiden. If I remember correctly, Numbskill actually he had COVID when he recorded Aiden's lines. That's how he got that real nasally fucking like just I don't know, because this takes place in the Pacific Northwest, and you know, people in the Pacific Northwest, they tend to talk more nasally, like sometimes with a little bit of the vocal fry coming in, you know. That's kind of like the accent. So I wanted to really capture that in here.
Don't be so modest. They would be nothing without your delivery.
Like, I don't think that these two, Aaron, Smithy, and Holy Junkie coordinated with each other at all, but like their performance, like I think the only thing I told both of them, the only bit of direction I gave them for their performances there was like smug, disingenuous liberal, and they both like it's hilarious. They have a very similar like cadence to the way that they speak. You know, Mr. President, to what do I owe the pleasure? Governor Holmes, the pleasure is all mine. Like, it's they're different voices, obviously, you know, different pitches and different, but like, it's interesting the performance lines up. And right there is an esoteric fucking red versus blue reference. If you know, you know. And
Some people just have a problem with
there's me as Chief Chuck Chambers.
I wasn't on the ground the night those riots were happening, but I know many officers who were. They're not just my employees, they're my partners.
There's always one cop. Every time there's cops in any scene, you always see the one with the CQB helmet carrying a rocket launcher.
Every day is a reminder that all it takes is one encounter with some thug, and my brother is gone for.
Of course, the joke here is like, you know, if you watch that protest, the cops are fucking, like, you know, shooting people in the face with rubber bullets, beating the shit out of random women, like, but then, like, 2 National Guard guys get killed by a civilian, and they stage this huge fucking event about it, and make it, like, just the biggest fucking deal in the world. You know, it's just, the idea that violence is only legitimate when it flows down the hierarchy. You know, when the cops beat the shit out of someone, it's like, oh, well, you know, it's the cops. But when you beat the shit out of a cop, it's a whole different story. Like, you know, as soon as violence goes up the hierarchy, then, you know, everything comes to a halt. We need to catch this man. Like, you know, it's feeding into that idea and providing some commentary. I don't know why there's a falcon there. I think originally I wanted to have it like flying in the background or something, but I didn't end up using it, and I kind of forgot it was there. And there's the warthogs fucking bouncing because people are standing too close to it. There's Aaron performing as Jason.
For providing tonight's security detail. The first responders who are here with us tonight, as well as all of you for coming to honor the fallen. I wish that I had.
There's a couple little armor mistakes here. Jason, his secondary color is supposed to be silver, but it was white in this scene for most of it.
Kevin Richards.
Then one of the cops, all the cops are supposed to just be blue on blue, but I think the scene before this I was playing as Aiden, and I forgot to change my secondary color from green to blue. So, whoopsie daisies.
Only to have his life destroyed in this senseless attack.
Of course, you got the red, white, and blue lights in the background.
Kevin's family has asked for privacy, and those wishes will be respected. However,
Aaron Smithy was fucking amazing as Jason in this. He did such a good job. Honestly, I could not have asked for better voice actors. Like, I was blown away by all of them.
very empathetic, both as a boy and as a man. He couldn't help but feel others' pain. One day in class, they showed him a short film about life in prison. He had to have been about 11 at the time.
This is setting up Jason's character arc later on.
He asked me why people have to spend their lives
Setting up that question of, like,
doing something horrible enough
you know, can people be forgiven for doing something horrible?
And I told him about a program
And,
that allows people to write letters to prisoners.
that's definitely a major theme in the in Awake. Just, particularly with the character Aiden. You know, the idea of, like, can someone do something bad, learn later that it was the wrong decision, and, like, you know, does that person deserve a second chance? And, you know, personally, I kind of believe that everyone deserves a second chance, at least for the most part. Obviously, there's some people who are just never gonna learn, but, you know, like, that's why I used, like, one of the most extreme examples possible, like, you know, someone who murdered his wife and daughter. But, you know, Toby's empathetic, almost, you could call it childlike nature, is, you know, he's 11, obviously, but everyone was worth it. That's a line that comes back up again later on
being,
from Jason
strengths, and flaws,
towards the end.
and dreams, who used to be a little kid, just
You know, of course, the irony of this scene becomes obvious in a second, where he's saying, you know, everyone is worth it. Everyone deserves a second chance.
could become good.
Like, anyone can become a good person, and I hope we can prove him right.
We can prove
Cut to the dead body on the ground. Just to undermine absolutely everything he just said. Like, if you pay attention during the scene, I cut back to the body at very specific times. Like, just to undermine whatever's being said at that point in time. Originally, I cut back to it way more frequently, but I decided, like, I didn't want to overdo it, so I dialed it back a little bit. I think it only cuts back like 4 times, maybe 5. And you can see right there, his colors are correct in that one shot, because I had to redo that. I realized as I was editing, I didn't have the shot of him stepping back. And dude just coughing his fucking brains out during the moment of silence.
Thank you. God bless you. God bless our troops, and God bless America.
And so he just gives this whole speech talking about, you know, forgiving people of their crimes and how people can be rehabilitated. Then it's immediately followed by this. You know, Chuck celebrating that they apprehended Aiden. And I love this part, the jet. Like the jet was just chilling, waiting for that exact moment to just zoom. It's fucking great. And right there, he says, if you would all please stand up. And then it cuts to the dead body. This part always gets a laugh out of everyone. That's me doing Chief Chuck Chambers there. We made hail at the Twilight's gleaming. Yeah. I'm not gonna do that too much because I definitely clipped like fuck when I did that, but that's gotta be my favorite line right there. Oh, those rivers we washed. Like, that and like, who's bought sprites and bright stars? That shit was like, I don't know, I'm proud of this. I'm real proud of this. And of course, you'll see the blue light is always associated with Chuck. And the white light is always associated with Jason. You know, Jason, like, like, I've had a few people tell me they see Jason as, like, the most morally clear character. And, like, I kind of play into that a little bit, but in my opinion, that's a little bit of the old manipulation of the audience. Because, you know, it's kind of, because if you think about it, Jason's the governor of a state that's like, you know, the cops are fucking killing people left and right for no reason. And so if you really get right down to the brass tacks of it all, Jason's responsible for more death than basically any other character in the movie. Like,
of course not.
And Sepia Ant and Danielle McManus. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name right. I think I am.
Sweep it under the rug once again.
And,
well, I'm all
this line,
but you can't just start killing people and destroying
property. A little bit of irony there. He's like, you know, I'm all for holding police accountable, but you can't just start killing people and destroying property. But if you, again, you return to that scene, cops are killing people left and right. Like, after the bomb goes off, they just open fire into the crowd wildly. Like, they definitely killed a few people. You know, shooting people in the face with rubber bullets, that's deadly as fuck. Like, you know, literally the opening shot of that scene is a cop just beating the shit out of some random woman. Like, so there's a bit of irony there. And of course, that line, I think I'm ready to try again, even after what happened last time. That's planting the seeds for the later scenes when that line gets explained.
Yeah, the agency was trying to find a way to reanimate.
You got the CIA agents here.
Essentially trying to create
completely expendable super soldiers.
It was me and Grandpa.
Sort of. They sent it up here for us to test. And, well, you'll see.
And I've had somebody asked if that was Morgan, the character, like Aiden's friend in the beginning, behind the glass, and it's not supposed to be. It's like they're actually blue in Seafoam, where Morgan is purple in Seafoam, but it's just really hard to tell because, you know, they're behind the glass and they're constantly out of focus.
In the neck? How is that even possible?
So, yeah, no, that was a bit of a mistake. I should have thought that through a little better. That screaming from both of them is all me. I literally just recorded myself just took 2 takes of me screaming for like 5 minutes straight, I think. And Midnight edited it and like made it sound a little more monstrous. And this is him showing, you don't see it yet, but this is like, you know, an elite body, so to speak, though obviously they're not elites in this. They're just the evolution of the zombie.
So, we're setting it back then.
Yeah, just to work out the bugs, you know?
Right, of course.
Just to work out the bugs. That's, you know, little bit of humor there. As they end up calling them bugs later on.
You ever been to DC?
In the script, I refer to all the zombies as bugs. You know, bug 1, bug 2.
The place itself is nice.
Sounds like Brighton.
It's exactly like Brighton.
I wish I had planned that shot out a little better. Because, you know, I had the camera panning the same way both times. But, you know, what can you do? In this scene, everyone fucking loves this part. This is probably my favorite part of the whole movie.
Fucking scum.
I wish I could be the one to kill you myself, you son of a bitch. That's me, obviously.
So, what are we transporting? That's classified, soldier.
I don't know, I love this part where he's like, what kind of music do you listen to? I don't listen to music. Just like the most inhuman possible response to a question like that. Like,
What kind of music do you like? I don't listen to music.
As I wanted to make him just like the most cartoonishly unlikable character. Like, I mean, he's a CIA agent, so it checks out, but of course, you got the green screen bird right there. This a stock video that I ripped off the internet.
You deserve everything.
Absolute insanity.
You fucking
You can see, I kind of fucked up. I forgot Aiden's secondary color is forest, so when I green screened this shot, you can see it kind of fucked up his armor color. Fortunately, you're not able to see through it for the most part. You can kind of see through his leg at certain points, but you know, I kind of hate myself for including the "you are going down" pun, but I also wouldn't have felt right if it wasn't put in there. Like, you know, it's one of those things. And here we got Aiden waking up. Well, not waking up, but, you know, you got this little shot implying that what's going to happen to Aiden later on. There's a couple shots like that. I try to use a lot of like visual symbolism and metaphor throughout the picture. And I wanted to include one of the soldiers like waking back up, both because like now Aiden has taken another life and the effect that has on him, but also just like the idea of you know, it wouldn't have made sense if Aiden was the lone survivor. It would have felt like too much of a plot contrivance, so I wanted to make it so, like, yeah, he's not the only one who survived that one. And, there you have, Dr. Morris as basically patient zero of this whole thing. That's, once again, me doing the screaming there. And I think I did this one coming up here. Yeah, that was definitely me. I don't know, I kind of wish I had gotten different sounding screams right there.
Work.
You know.
And, you know, cut back to Kaylee and James driving through the city.
Every day.
Can we talk about something else?
What do you want for dinner tonight?
I don't
And,
care.
Oh, come on. You always say that.
you know,
I always
they're
want
having a
something.
kind of a pointless argument. It shows like
What
their
do you want
relationship's like a little rocky. You know,
I'm sorry.
things aren't exactly perfect. He's kind of stressed out from work. And she's just trying to be jovial, you know. She's
Really, it's okay.
like, "Oh, come on, there's got to be something you want." And he's like, "Fuck off." You know,
I know Pestillo's
you
got
know,
some really good pepperoni.
kind of a dick, but
Hear that?
Yeah.
I think he means well. And you know, I think it makes it like almost more tragic what happens next. The fact that like basically the last conversation they have with each other is mostly an argument. And you know, then the trauma music comes in again here. That's Pudgy Hamster. We're all gonna die. Blah! And that's actually Aaron Smithy doing the choking sound there. He sent me a recording. I posted that I needed death sounds. He sent a recording of him just like choking on water, basically. And I talked over it, but you'll see the cop rammed into a random civilian.
Show these anarchist terrorists what real terror looks like.
Now, that line right there slips right past you because it's followed immediately by this. But it's kind of like the whole point of the first 30 minutes in one line where the cop's like, let's show these anarchist terrorists what real terror looks like. Which, like, you know, low-key implying that the cops are the real terrorists and there's nothing that any quote-unquote anarchist terrorist can do that can match the sheer power of the state.
I'm not going to waste any time here. I'm closely monitoring the situation in your state, and we're doing everything we can to restore order.
Do you have any idea what's
Yeah.
happening?
A few hours ago, a cargo plane
Very, you know, you might be surprised to hear this, but I'm not a big fan of cops. In case that wasn't clear.
Jason, what I'm about to
But
tell you is highly classified.
yeah, no.
The Central Intelligence Agency was researching ways of reanimating
There's
the case
Holy Junkie once again just absolutely killing it as the president.
to rewrite the subject's genetic
And
makeup.
Aaron Smithy also killing it as Jason.
Has the predatory instinct, all while decreasing self-esteem. The perfect warrior who acts not
I love that idea of like, you know, the zombies being genetically modified to have lower self-esteem.
the test subjects impossible to
You know, as like, in case it isn't clear, the zombies in this are a metaphor for fascism. So it's basically what I'm saying is that like fascists have low self-esteem, which is what motivates them to become fascist.
How far can it spread?
Yeah, just
expose an open atmosphere. Only a matter of time before it spreads across the entire world.
I love this line. It's like,
All of this is
people need their leaders in times of crisis. Who are we to take that away from them?
time
It's
of crisis.
so fucking cynical. Just
Take that away from them.
like knowing it's over, like the world's about to end, but don't tell anyone because we don't want to. You know, people need their leaders in times of crisis. You know.
It is Washington. All clear so far.
Solid copy. Take the next left on Union Street. We'll cover your 6.
It's midnight again as one of the National Guard guys.
See that? Yeah. You take the right. I'll go left.
Copy that. See you on the other side. All clear. You good? Anything? Oh shit.
This is like the main theme. It's the song's called the Prometheus Order. There's a few different versions of it. Like one with strings. This one has no strings. And of course, there's the version I used in the second trailer with "God Bless America" slowed down over it.
That thing just talk?
Establishing the fact that they can talk, which, I mean, I established it earlier when he's like, it even screamed wait when I shot it, which that's also something that comes up again later. You know, keep that in mind. The first bug that was killed by Dr. Morris, when he shot him, the bug said wait. And that'll come up later, but you know, then Gerald had to kill his own. There's the teleporter.
What the fuck is going on?
So,
I don't fucking know.
That's how he found out.
One of those
Like,
things said something to me.
It said something.
dead are coming back like fucking zombies. This scene, I put a landmine down on the other side of that warthog, and then just picked up the Falcon in Forge Ball mode and smashed it into the landmine to create that explosion. And there's this scene. Things just go from 0 to 100 in like a microsecond.
Once we have the situation under control, you can open the door.
Just to create this general feeling of unease, like at any moment, shit can just go fucking haywire. Anyone can die at any time. Like, I wanted to really establish that sort of chaotic feeling, which it's there right from the start, where like Toby's the first character, other than the cop saying, "Get on the ground, stop resisting." Toby is one of the first characters with a line. He actually speaks before Gerald does. So you think he's going to be a big character, but then he gets killed immediately. You know, setting the stage that, like, you know, anyone can go at any time. There's no rules in that regard.
My fellow Americans, today.
There we go. This is my magnum opus as a writer right here. This fucking speech. He says democracy 11 times. I tried to cram the word into the speech as often as I could, just to really just to really like, oh, it's making fun of the way politicians use like buzzwords and shit. Like soon everyone just kind of starts to say it, like,
and with a silent,
I don't know. Or it's making fun of that whole "this is a serious threat to our democracy" meme that a lot of people will probably remember from a bunch of years ago.
Our democracy's strength is in its people, who have exalted themselves in its defense. These anarchist terrorists can shoot our citizens, but they can never shoot our democracy. They may tear people limb from limb, but they can never tear apart the bond we have as Americans.
Like, if you think about what he's saying, it's just utterly preposterous. Like, they can shoot our citizens, but they can never shoot our democracy. They can tear people limb from limb, but they can never tear apart the bond we have as Americans. Like, that's stupid as fuck. This utter fucking, just absolutely ridiculous shit. Just utter nonsense.
The best of the best.
It's great. It's great.
The best of America. Our first responders running into the
music is slowly picking up. I remember watching this in the Discord server. There was everyone in the chat was like, you know, oh, a zombie's gonna show up. I know it. Zombie's gonna burst through the door and kill him. Like zombies, like I can hear the music building up. They all thought like zombies are gonna just burst through the door. But I don't know. I like. I'm glad that I was able to subvert the expectations there, so to speak.
Just like the American people.
Or you think it's gonna go one way, but it goes absolutely the other way. I tried to like create a feeling of tension with all the shots, where none of them are like perfectly even here, really, like for the most part. And, a lot of time he's dead center of the frame, or like all the way to the left with all the dead space behind him, just to like kind of create a feeling of tension, you know, like something's gonna happen, along with the music slowly building up.
Who have called to offer their condolences and assistance We stand together.
I love that line. Like, I'd like to thank the many members of Congress who have joined me in strongly condemning these attacks. You know, as opposed to the members of Congress who supported the attacks.
I ask for your prayers.
Just like
for the children.
Ridiculous.
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 For all whose sense of security has been
I spent a lot of time watching like actual presidential speeches while writing the speeches in this film.
And the God of all grace.
And you got the Bible quote that has absolutely fucking nothing to do with anything. I went out of my way to make sure that the quote that I chose just made no fucking sense in context. Just like the most just pointless, like obvious pandering.
Unite in our resolve for order
and democracy.
We've stood down our fair share of enemies.
Of course, you got this line here, low-key, implying that America and Canada had a war in the past.
We will stand down this enemy as well.
Which that does actually come up. That's going to come up again in Act 2.
But still, we march on.
So you'll have to keep an eye out for that to learn
and all that is
where I'm going with that.
In our world. Thank you. Good night.
I love.
God bless you all.
Of course, you got this part, which I can't believe no one got mad at me for this. Like, you know, if you listen closely, you can hear one of them yell, "I think he's dead."
Mom, Dad, I always fucking hated you. If you're watching this, I hope your death is painful.
Oh my God! What is that thing?
That's actually Yell R. That's the first appearance of Yell R right there. And earlier, when Jason goes into his bunker and the Secret Service agent gets killed outside, that's the first appearance of Alec. So here we have Kaylee and Gerald waking up, different parts of the city, kind of cutting between them. A little bit of lag in that shot.
Does anyone read me?
And yeah, no. This was the stuff with Kaylee was actually the first scene that I shot, if I remember correctly. Just because, like, it's just one character, so it was really easy for me to just go in the game and just, you know, do it real quick. And you always see her, like, associated with shattered glass throughout this whole sequence, kind of visually, kind of a visual metaphor for her whole world being shattered by this, like, right there in particular. That shot took a while to line up right. But I'm really proud of that one, because it's through the shattered glass from the Falcon behind her. And of course, she walks into the camera, and then Gerald walks away from the camera. I tried to, like, make the cuts between them kind of connect to each other. So, like, you know, right as Gerald stands up, it cuts to Kaylee standing up. That sort of thing. We got a 6-month time jump. And, you know, shit's all fucked up on this highway, which there's actually, I had another version of this map, like, before the apocalypse and everything went down, when it's just, like, a highway, but I never ended up using it.
I'm looking at the monitor right now.
And there's no way it
There's Aiden talking on the radio with Kaylee, establishing that at some point they met each other and teamed up with each other.
You're so smart, Kaylee. What would I do without you?
Oh, I shudder to think.
I love shots like that where, like, the subject is slightly out of focus, kind of a, you know, Zack Snyder kind of stylistic choice. I do it again there. I do it a lot throughout this whole machinima, where, like, the subject itself is out of focus and you're more focused on, like, the background. Like, to me, it's kind of a visual metaphor for how, you know, technology and also nature, you know, are, you know, kind of on the same level as human beings, and the fact that they're treated as equally disposable. And then you got a shot up here coming up, which I had that shot in my head for the entire time I was writing it. I storyboarded this machinima. I didn't use the storyboards much for like framing the shot, but it helped a lot with the screenplay and you know, making sure everything worked visually before I went and filmed it. But that's one shot that I storyboarded that I kept in, like exactly as it was storyboarded.
There were survivors. There's nothing you could do. You better get going. There's probably backup on the way.
Alright, let me just take care of these two.
Shots like that are always difficult because you gotta keep the subject in focus while moving the camera. And the way the focus works is like, it's reshade, so you pop open the reshade menu, select the depth of field option, put your mouse over whatever you want to have in focus, and then and this explosion is in game right there. There's actually no like computer generated anything. There's like no special effects. Like that's green screen from like a modded map that I had, which I think went toes up with one of the updates. There's Willow there playing, I think she's credited as Woman 1 there. I can't remember. It's either Woman 1 or Human 1. That's me, and the other one's Midnight.
Yes, my lord.
Kind of, you know, throwback to the beginning when the cops just beating the shit out of a defenseless woman in a similar fashion to the way the bugs just fucking like killed that yet again another defenseless woman. You know, drawing a parallel between bugs and humans, you know, and their authoritarian behavior. A little bit of slow-mo there. Threw in a bass drop just to make it complete.
You would fuck this up.
There's Kaylee's grand re-entrance. That scene was kind of a pain in the ass to do. Honestly, surprisingly, I thought the highway scene was going to be a lot harder, but it was surprisingly it went relatively smooth. I think the hardest one out of all of them was the aftermath of Aiden crashing in the helicopter. That scene took a while.
Oh, you're so funny, Aiden. But you really shouldn't be talking. There's no invisibility cloak strong enough to hide your insecurity.
Oh, you two should get married.
Yeah, in his dreams.
You know, there were a couple of people who thought that Kaylee and Aiden had a romantic thing. But that's like right there. It's kind of set up that they don't, and that they're just friends, guys. Like, you know, he's like, oh, you two should get married. She's like, yeah, in his dreams. And he's like, no, fuck that. Fuck that. Like, oh. There's also people who said that they thought Gerald and Kaylee had a romantic thing going, and once again, I don't really see it that way. Personally. Like, you know, they're just friends, guys.
How'd you find Aiden?
You know, she lost her husband in a very traumatic way. I don't think like, it's a post-apocalyptic world. I don't think she's rushing to get back into another relationship, bruh. Like,
a golf club as a backup weapon. You know, just in case.
You know, the flashback scenes are all oversaturated, where the modern like timeline scenes are all desaturated, and the flashbacks also have a slight, you know, feathered vignette over them. It's not super obvious, but it's there if you look real close. You can see it. It's more obvious in some shots than in others. Like in these shots, you really can't see it, but you can kind of see it there. But just to make it so the flashbacks feel a little different from, the modern times, or the present.
Don't worry, everyone. I'm alive.
Yeah, that rack focus looked a little funky. 'Cause the way I do rack focuses is, I'll set the camera up with the focus on one thing, and then I'll keep the shot the same, just like change what the camera's focused on and back it up and shoot the same shot again, and then I'll just like cut the two shots together with a crossfade in the middle, so that it kind of looks like a natural rack focus. But yeah, no, that's why that one shot, it looks kind of weird. There's that like kind of sloppy looking crossfade. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff with the cinematography I would have done differently if I were to do it again, but there's a lot of it that I'm proud of. Like, this shot looks really nice, and once again, the Nightmare, the colors are all hyper saturated, like, which I tried originally desaturating it and it made everything pink. So I was like, well, that ain't scary. I can't do that. And you can hear there the breathing. That's actually going throughout this entire scene, which, Pudgy recorded a track of him breathing, and it's steadily turning into hyperventilating. And then I threw a speed ramp on it in Reaper, so it starts off slow as fuck, and just slowly speeds up back to normal. I don't know, I remember people saying, like, oh, romantic music playing, oh, they must have a No! They're just friends. And I don't really consider this track particularly romantic either. It's just, it's like, kind of like somber more than anything else. I kind of wish I had just left this part in silence instead of having like the soft music in the background. Just, leave the emotions of the scene more up to the audience to interpret, but, felt right at the time. There's Aiden realizing, oh shit, I killed this dude's homie. And in that moment, this is like the first time Aiden actually feels guilt about what he did, because up until this point, he's kind of justifying it, being like, oh, well, it's the National Guard, they're basically cops, and he's not like exactly wrong in his assessment that, like, National Guard in this universe at least fulfill the same purpose as the police. I don't actually know how accurate my depiction of the National Guard is in this, because I wasn't exactly going for realism there. I was more trying to make a point about the difference between, like, people in the military and people on the police force, and the way, like, the police, if they don't want to follow orders, they can just go get a different job, they can go deliver pizza and, actually contribute to society for once. But, if you're in the army, you signed a contract, you're there. Like, if you disobey orders, then you're risking your ability to even get decent work in the future. Like, you get a dishonorable discharge and you're done. It's the equivalent of having a felony on your record. So he really didn't have a choice. As soon as he signed over his soul to the devil, so to speak, it's he doesn't have any rights anymore. He has to do what he's told. Threat of basically poverty, or if you want to get real extreme, it's kind of the threat of death. If you don't follow orders, we'll give you a dishonorable discharge. You won't be able to get a decent job. Like, all this shit, makes it like that much harder to keep yourself alive. And now this scene, if you pay, I think I edited it in such a way that it's not really noticeable, but if you pay attention, you never actually see the Overlord and any of the people being sacrificed in the same shot. And that's because I didn't have enough people. So I just did all the Overlord's shots separately.
We have required sacrifices for Prometheus. Thank you, Lord Alec.
That's me as the Overlord and Sepia Ant as Alec. Which, I hope I didn't just spoil that. Though, if you're watching this, I'm assuming you've seen Act 1. And if you haven't, I don't know what the fuck you're doing here. But, yeah, no. Spoiler alert, I guess. And, Midnight Dubstep did all the, what's it called, modulation for all the voices for the bugs. Which, you know, raw, this is just, those who live a sinful life are fools. But then I had it deepened and some distortion added, you know. Made it sound a little more, like, monstrous. But I wanted it to also sound, I wanted them to sound distinct from, like, Halo Elites. I didn't want them to have, like, the same sort of tone that you would get from that. And then here's, this scene is just a fucking cartoon moment. Just, like, every second of this is just increasingly ridiculous. Like, they basically have unlimited ammo. Like, they're just constantly firing off rounds, never reloading. Like, it's literally cartoon logic. And of course, right here, I love that shot. And that shot kind of comes up again later. It's not the exact same shot, but there's a little bit of a throwback. And I kind of wish I had cut to an establishing shot there instead of just cutting to them three standing there, but because I realized afterwards you don't actually see what Aiden's house looks like until it's destroyed, which I don't know. I feel bad about that because Lawman did a really good job building this map, and I didn't really get much of a chance to show it off except for the interior.
For another second.
Danielle just absolutely going off on them. Like, listen, you fucking neckbeards. Like, and I don't know. I love the idea of, like, Marvel and DC fans, even after the apocalypse, they're still arguing with each other. Like, that shit's hilarious to me. And, like, Gerald being a Zack Snyder fan. Like, there's something that's just so amusing to me about that.
Hello? Please let me in.
Like, it has nothing to do with the plot at all. It's kind of a Quentin Tarantino moment, but I think it adds to the story. You know, it adds to the character's development. And you know, he says, "I promise I wasn't followed. I swear, was definitely fucking followed." And you know, is establishing like Alec followed him and shows Alec's abilities to as a hunter, you know, being able to track humans like that, which low-key, that's kind of at its absolute root, that's kind of what this whole movie is about. It's, you know, the idea of a new species coming to Earth and taking over, becoming the new dominant species, and treating human beings the way we treat not only other animals, but also how we treat each other. It's low-key vegan propaganda. You know, kind of like Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
A few hours, my friends and I were taking care
Though,
back to this prison before being brought up to
I think it's subtle enough. Honestly, I was expecting to get more hate comments just because of like all the political commentary like strewn throughout this whole thing. I was expecting more people to get mad or call it like, you know, woke propaganda or whatever. But yeah, no, everyone, it seems to have been really well received. I haven't seen any complaints about that, and I think it's because I did my best to represent as many perspectives as I could. It's like, you know, you have James as like kind of the conservative, and you got Jason as like the liberal politician, and Aiden obviously is an anarchist. Like, specifically, I drew from like anarcho-communism for him.
What's your story?
I was born and raised right here.
Kaylee was like kind of a liberal, but like, you know, hanging out with Aiden, he kind of introduced her to his philosophy. And, you know, she became something of a revolutionary anarchist as well. Or Gerald is... Oh, Gerald is interesting. He's kind of...
It had its perks, don't get me wrong, but...
I mean, he also is a bit of an anarchist in a way, but he comes... For him, I drew more from the philosophies of, like, Max Stirner and, like, Friedrich Nietzsche and, you know, Renzo Novator as a way to build a much more, like, brutal kind of individualist perspective where, you know, he and Aiden agree on a number of things regarding, like, state power and, you know, all that stuff. But he's much more cynical, which is shown here when he's like, you know, Aiden's like, oh, we need to have a revolution. And Gerald's like, bruh. Like, you fucking serious, bruh? And then, of course, this part, Aiden's like, we have a right as human beings to autonomy.
They can rule over us in life.
And Aiden's got kind of a point here. And then Gerald's just like, hey, yo, miss me with them fucking human rights.
I could tell you from a first-hand experience,
this line, it's easy to misinterpret Gerald here, I think, which intentionally so. Gerald's opposition to human rights, if you could even call it that, his point is more so that, you know, human rights are an abstract concept that don't actually exist in reality. You know, there's no way you can fucking, you know, there's no way you can quantify human rights. So, really what it comes down to is whoever's most willing to enforce their will and pursue their power, that's the person who, like, they're the ones who get things. Rights don't really come into it. So it's more so just an opposition to abstract ideas. Where Gerald just doesn't really care about abstractions and shit. He cares about materially what's real. And there's another shot implying what's gonna happen to Aiden later on. And fucking, this shot took fucking way too many tries to get right. And Royal Zealot helped building that version of the map with after it was drone strike. And it's a very subtle difference because I looked at like actual photos of homes that had been hit with a drone strike, and usually the structure itself is kind of sound, but it's more so like the interior that gets destroyed. Like there'll be a hole in the top, and then the interior's all fucking all fucked up. And I love that line. I believe they have escaped. Alex like, yeah, I fucking know. That's also where Alex sees Aiden driving off with Jason, which is how he knows that he caught, you know, the next best thing later on. Spoiler alert! There's Jason picking or Gerald picking the lock. That's another shot that I had storyboarded. It didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it to. I kind of wish I had started with it steady and then started rotating it with when the characters moved. But it turned out alright, I think.
You good?
Huh? Oh, yeah. I'm fine.
And a little bit of... This is actually two tracks blended together. One of them is from Incompetech. That excuse me.
That was no fair. You had a head start.
Any problems along
Wow,
the way?
two for two.
You're safe here.
And that
Not a
I
bad
think
spot either.
that like humming in the background. I'm pretty sure Midnight recorded like the vent above his stove for that. And there's the trauma, song again right there. That
I think I need to get some sleep.
There's a master bedroom across the hall. You can crouch there if you'd like.
Of course, this is Jason's old house. You'll also notice he looks at the window. As his son hung himself in front of the window, so for the remainder of the film, whenever you see that window,
Aaron?
it
There, bud?
kind of represents both death and also, Jason's way, kind of the way Jason comes to view Gerald later on, and sort of like, as sort of like a father-son relationship in a way.
I told you he needed to see someone.
I tried, I swear to God, I tried. I've been reaching out to his teachers, trying to find therapists.
You never gave
A little bit of an axis jump there.
admit it.
Whoopsie daisies. But it kind of works because you expect it to go one way, but then the scene goes a different way, and right as the axis jumps. It's also, the music gets more complicated as this plays out, because, you think it's clear cut, like, his son killed himself, this is a sad moment for both of them, and you want to feel bad for both of them, but then, like, Barbara starts going off, being low-key kind of abusive, which, in my opinion, like, she's lambasting him for withdrawing into his speeches and his writing, but most likely the reason he did that was, at least in part, because of the abuse he suffered from his wife, Barbara. But, even then, like, he can't bring himself to not like her, to, not care about her. He refuses to see what he went through as abuse in any way. So it paints a really complex picture. Much more, I find it much more interesting than if it was like a happy relationship and then the son died and they're both just sad about it. I think it makes it a little more morally ambiguous.
What must I do? Oh, gracious Lord.
There's a lot of that in this, a lot of moral ambiguity. And of course there's the line here, he says, Plotet extols only a hero, one who proves himself through action, not through simple collocation. Which, it's sort of playing into the fascist tendency towards hero worship. And you'll notice there's no real clear-cut good guys in Awake, and that's kind of the point. The idea of, like, it's kind of like the idea of believing in heroes as a real-world concept. In storytelling, it can be interesting. You can learn some cool lessons from stories with clear-cut heroes and villains or whatever. But when applied to reality, it gets a lot messier. You end up, kind of worshiping people. And of course, this scene, Alec tells Yellar to refer to him by his name instead of as my lord, because he sees himself as not being worthy of the honor of being called lord until he sets himself right. And that's another line that you must learn from my mistakes. You must take them on as your own. That line is very revealing about the philosophy of the Plotetatian order. This sort of like kind of like culturally collectivist, like right-wing collectivism idea of like holding other people accountable for one person's mistake, or one person's not even mistake, like,
I wasn't sure what to say.
I mean, really, all he did was all that really happened was he wasn't able to kill Jason. But that was crime enough for him to have his honor taken away. And because, they have genetically lowered self-esteem, they, he takes losing his honor very seriously. Anyway, so there's this whole scene. I was kind of worried when I was writing it that this scene would get boring because it's just, 4 people standing in a room talking for 10 minutes. But I think it worked out decently. I think it's carried heavily by the performances from Pudgy Hamster, Numbskill, Danielle, and Aaron. All 4 of them are fucking incredible voice actors.
he somehow managed to get back to
Fucking numbskills laughter always kills me in this part. Straight up Joker laugh.
He looks at me with the fear of God in his eyes. He calmed down a
And
little when he realized
the point of this scene is like, you see, Jason comes in at first, he's the only one who's not laughing. But then he like kind of chuckles a little bit. Then he chuckles more, and as the scene progresses, he starts opening up more and laughing more, kind of loosening up. And this is actually the first scene where Jason sounds like kind of genuine. Like up until this point, he's still kind of stuck in that politician speak way of doing things, and being back in his old home where he lived when he lost his wife and son. You know, he's forced to confront his past trauma. And then he goes out, he goes back over here. He comes out to talk to them. And he finally starts to break out of that shell that he's created, which he talks about later. Like the mask that he constructed for himself as a politician. And it's, you know, kind of commenting on just the complete disingenuity. I don't know if that's a word. But the disingenuous nature of being a politician. And, you know, exploring that concept of, you know, what if, you know, somebody's, like, they become permanently disingenuous as a coping mechanism, and ironically, it makes them just great at being a politician. The president calls him the best speechwriter in the country, and, like, you know, kind of feeding into that whole concept. Gerald talking about his experience being raised by a single father.
God, that's fucking horrible.
The teacher kept a straight face
And he says that his dad listened to a lot of talk radio shows, and I low-key think that's why, that's what fucked up Gerald the worst.
So you remember that speech he gave right after invading Iran, right?
America is more than a nation. It is the essence of freedom, of democracy, of justice made form. It is the promise of man's enlightenment.
Pudgy Loki did a pretty good job of imitating Holy Junkie here. I can't remember if I actually sent him a recording of what Holy Junkie sounded like before recording that line, but either way, he did a really good. It could just be a coincidence, but he did a really good job with it.
All the fucking liberals who wouldn't shut up.
I love just the sheer venom in her voice when she's like, "All the fucking liberals." Like, I love it. I love it. Yeah, Danielle was fucking great.
Yeah, Begaman had me write all his speeches. I never could write the things I really wanted to say, but I don't know. It felt like the best way for me to influence the president. Maybe
As soon as I heard Aaron's first audition, I was like, "Oh, that's Jason." Like, not even a question. He has that sort of like, he kind of sounds like a dad, and I wanted that for Jason's character. I wanted him to kind of feel like, you know, the father, you know, sort of the father figure, you know, the more not exactly morally upstanding, because like I said earlier, he's responsible for more death than anyone in the room. Which, that's actually another interesting thing. If you think about it, basically everyone in this conversation before the apocalypse, they were all murderers. Like, Gerald was in the National Guard, definitely killed some people who didn't deserve it. Kaylee was a police officer, definitely killed some people who didn't deserve it. Aiden, you know, opening scene. But, you know, because you don't necessarily see them doing these things, or like, there's that level of disconnect where, you know, oh, well, of course Gerald killed a guy, he's in the National Guard, that's his job. Or, you know, of course Kaylee killed people, she was a police officer, you know, that's her job. And, you know, Jason, you know, well, he didn't kill people, he just, you know, signed all the legislation and, you know, turned a blind eye to the police state, you know, he didn't, you know, pull the trigger or anything like that. But, you know, he oversaw the death of literally thousands of people. Like, I love this part right here, where you're not sure what's gonna happen. You know, everyone's just kind of silent for a second. Like, damn, this whole thing happened by accident? Then they burst out laughing. That's actually my snort there. That was me. I recorded that.
Overall, from an insider perspective, what are your thoughts on the United States government?
We read you loud and clear.
To be fair, I don't think anyone really liked the government. Most people just thought it was necessary.
And a little bit of a philosophical debate where Jason gets kind of ganged up on by everyone. And Jason's like, no, we need a government. And like, there's also where you kind of see both the similarities and the differences with Aiden and Kaylee's philosophy from Gerald's philosophy. Where, you know, Kaylee's, this line is great. She's like, you know, people don't need vertical command structures to avoid killing each other. It's life under government that leads to that. You know, it's kind of true. But that's the thing is she's still talking. She and Aiden are talking about like an ideal future society with no state. Gerald doesn't really give a shit about that. Gerald's more of just like, you know, he's a realist. He's like, I don't give a fuck about no like future utopia and vision or whatever. All I care about is this is what the state is. This is the nature of the police, of the military, of the government itself. That's what it is. And like, you know, it's not about what should it be or, you know, what should society look like. It's this is what it is. You know, you protect yourself. Nobody else is going to do it for you. It's not, he's not being prescriptive. He's being descriptive. More than anything. He's not saying this is how it should be. He's saying this is how it is. Whether you like it or not. And there's that little flash, which, if you look closely, that's the same map that you see in the Nightmare, just without the orange effect on. So it's kind of revealing he's got a guilty conscience about someone that he killed in the past. And of course you have Aiden here also with a guilty conscience over someone that he killed in the past. Little bit of juxtaposition there. Kind of showing, you know, Gerald's about to judge Aiden super fucking hard for what he did. Even though Gerald realistically is just as guilty, if not more so. He is, I mean, Gerald killed, you know, ordinary citizens. Whereas, you know, Aiden killed military people, you know, combatants. Like, it's a whole different ball field.
I don't know what to say to Gerald.
That shot took 1,000,000 tries.
Gerald, put the gun down.
Of course, the tense music kicks in right there. Pudgy Hamster absolutely killed this part. It's so good.
Gerald, put the gun down.
Trauma music coming back in. Just slowly increasing in volume, leading up to the best line in the movie. I fucking love it. He performed that so well. Shut the fuck up, you Starbucks slurping born rich little commie fuckstick. If you think I wasn't pissing myself with laughter as I wrote that. The whole point here is it's kind of showing, kind of presenting Gerald's anger over this as being like sort of childish. You know, it might not seem that way to like an average person, you know, oh, well, he's angry that Aiden's a murderer, you know, that's not exactly a childish perspective, but like right here, the way he's just like pacing back and forth like, oh, that fucking fucker, I'm gonna fucking fuck. Like, it's really it's a really childish, like, temper tantrum kind of reaction. You can argue it's justified, definitely. But, like, and you'll see here, he turns and looks out the window, and Jason has, like, this little realization. You know, he's standing in front of the window his son died in front of, and he kind of sees Gerald. You start seeing Gerald as kind of like a son figure in a way. And this is another part I kind of wish I didn't include the piano music, but it is what it is. But this is where Jason really comes clean. And his whole point is basically like, you know, we're all just as guilty as Aiden is. If anything, more so. Like, which, like I was just talking about, all of these people are killers. All of them are murderers. All of them have blood all over their fucking hands. But, you know, this is the first part where Jason really acknowledges the fact that he's guilty of some wild shit. And, like, that his whole politician persona was actually a coping mechanism for, after the tragedy that he went through. In the original script, the scene where Barb is screaming at him after his son dies, she was actually supposed to hit him, but it just looked really weird. And when I actually acted it out, you know, it's Halo, so it's gonna look kind of weird, and I don't know. So I decided to remove that. I think the verbal abuse on its own was enough to sort of set up their relationship as being, you know, toxic. And I think it's also, it's something you don't really see a lot in media, is, you know, a male victim of a female abuser. You know, normally it's the other way around, but I wanted to give that kind of representation. And it also kind of, you know, it kind of ties into his inability to see his wife as an abusive person. Kind of like, you know, it ties back to, you know, traditional gender roles. The idea of, like, you know, the man being the dominant one, you know, and where the woman is, like, the innocent, submissive victim, and it can never go the other way.
Everyone deserves that chance. Everyone is worth it.
Right there, the line from his speech about Toby comes back. Everyone is worth it. And Gerald, in my mind, Gerald remembers that line and realizes, you know, this probably isn't what Toby would have really wanted. It'd be for him to kill Aiden. Like, I don't know. It's never made explicit whether or not Gerald would forgive him. Like, I kind of want to leave that open to interpretation.
Must have beaten us here.
It was like, I remember watching it, there were two different reactions to that scene where Jason gave his speech to Gerald there. And, you fucked up. But, you know, I saw one person who was like, those are some wise words from Jason there. And another person who's like, yo, fuck that. Aiden's a murderer. And that's sort of what I'm going for. Like, it's something that can be interpreted in multiple different ways. You know, depending on your perspective. And, like, I think that's probably why people didn't really mind the politics of it all, is because I gave equal enough representation to enough differing views that, you know, if you don't like one person's perspective, then you can relate to someone else's. You know, if you don't like what Gerald's saying, maybe you'll like what Jason's saying. If you don't like what Aiden's saying, maybe you'll like what fucking James is saying, you know? You can choose which character you relate to the most. And some people, when we were watching it originally, were unsure. They were like, oh, why isn't Alec going after Kaylee? You know, he's looking right at her. Why doesn't he do anything? But you'll find out in a minute. It's one of those things where it seems like a plot hole. But then, if you keep watching, a few minutes later, it's explained. And there's,
we have traced
I can't remember what I credit her as.
It's located in the
southeast
of the Salon.
Her name in the Discord server is Lady Calamity, playing Yellar. So, it's funny, Yellar is a male character voiced by a female voice actor. It's kind of flipping the classic John Graham style trope of like having a dude playing all the woman voices.
What shall we do, my lord?
And
let us send these sacrifices to Prometheus.
and coming up here, Alec tells Yellar to refer to him by his name once again, throwing back to earlier when he tells Yellar to do that as a way of like, because he sees himself as being dishonored within the Promethean order. But in this part, he asks to be called by his name as more of a denunciation of the Promethean order, whereas before it was out of devotion to.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
He no longer wants that feeling of honor within the system that he's contributed to. Because, as you're about to find out, he realizes the monster that he's turned into once, once he sees Kaylee and remembers who he was before. Fucking spoiler alert! And, I kind of wish I did this over the part where Alec enters through the window, because, I don't know, you can see it's a little jumpy, the way he just kind of jumps out. And right there, he says, wait. Which, that's what earlier, when Dr. Morris says, yep, it even screamed, wait, when I shot it. That's setting up that, where he comes in, he's like, wait.
And why should we believe you?
And you hear the music start to come back in. It's the same music that played when you were introduced to Kaylee and James around the 20-minute mark. Which, the track itself is called, it's Kaylee's theme. But it plays twice. And this is also where you find out what happened last time. And why it took Kaylee a while to be ready to try to have a baby again. Sepia Ant absolutely killed it with this scene. Like, I don't know. And that scream is fucking amazing. I don't know. Both Danielle and Sepia Ant were fucking incredible in this. Like, and there you see, I positioned the camera so that the window is between them, because the window is sort of like symbolizing death, and it's separating them. Which also throughout this whole thing, there's a lot of there's a lot of focus on like squares and symmetry, and symmetry kind of represents like both death and also fascism. Throughout this whole thing, like you'll often see characters in a square before they die, or like right there you've got the square separating Kaylee and Alec, representing the fact that they are separated by death, essentially. And of course, the sacrificial pit itself is also a square.
O highest one, O holy king of all things, Prometheus.
Now, in this one, the Overlord and the sacrifices were actually in the same game. And that's why you'll see them in the same shot.
And you made these heretics taste the everlasting wrath of all the fires and all the suffering awaiting them in the next world. Those who resist their awakening are fools. Fools who betray the
Got some fucking trailer music in the background there.
who will pay an eternal price for their disobedience. Glory be to Prometheus.
And then taking out the turret bug that you saw a couple of times earlier. And here we got the opening shot coming back in right at the hour 24-minute mark. I don't know. But this time it goes on longer and there's no musical accompaniment. And you really see all the people falling in for a much longer period. And if you pay attention, I think it's like the first batch of sacrifices, all of them have the same armor as, like the scene where Jason escapes. All of them have the same armor on as the people in the opening scene with where the cops beating the shit out of that random woman. And of course, Aiden dies, jumps into the pit, and now Kaylee's just mowing them all down. Fucking, like, this part, this whole scene took like 28 games to get right, and I love that shot. That's probably the one I'm most proud of out of the entire thing, is that one scene. Which there was like a landmine that I phased a rock on top of, and then I had Midnight Dubstep as Kaylee standing on a wall with the Falcon behind him, and I just deleted the wall and had him jump at the same time, so he would land in a crouch, the Falcon would blow up right behind him, get that beautiful shot. And of course there's Jason looking at the rocket launcher, kind of implying something's gonna happen with it later. And I talked right through the part where Jason drives up the fucking staircase, splatters the bug with the rocket, which that took a couple of tries, and I had to use a gravity lift to get him up the ramp. Jason looking into the pit, realizing Aiden died exactly the same way he could have died if he were a little less lucky.
Where is my evacuation? We're arriving now. Oh, gracious overlord.
Here we got, that's Midnight as the pilot there. And we got a little bit of slow motion for that explosion. I love my slow-mo explosions. Nothing like it. And for all the slow-mo scenes, I shoot it in the game with slow-mo. Like, I push the right trigger a little bit. And I love that one shot from the side, where you basically are just seeing their silhouettes.
No, Jason. The Promethean order betrayed me. You are weak! You allow your mind to be led astray by the vermin! You shall be punished! As will you!
You notice he says, as will you, while looking at Kaylee. And Kaylee responds, as will you. Which, kind of drawing a parallel between humans and the bugs once again. Is that's a big theme throughout this whole movie, is just, it's dragon weight. That's what I credited her as. But, that's kind of one of the main themes throughout the whole film, is this idea that there really isn't much of a difference between the bugs and, the human society that existed beforehand. It's just, and now everybody's a victim instead of just certain classes of people being victims or other species of animals being the victims. Now everybody's treated exactly the same. Yeah, I know. So that's Awake Act 1, The Modern Prometheus. Thank you for watching. If you want to help out with body acting or anything else with Act 2, I'm shooting that right now. And we need plenty of help, especially if you're a PC player. We definitely need your help. So make sure to join the Discord server to get in on that. And I'll need more voice actors in the future for like Act 3. Right now, I think I have everything cast for Act 2, if I remember correctly. But I will need more actors come Act 3, more voice actors. And yeah, so if you liked this, hit like to show that you liked it. And make sure to subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell, make it go ding. Ding that notification bell real good. Give it a good ding. And leave a comment telling me what you think. And yeah, that's about all. That covers it all. I'm gonna hop off now. I've had to take a piss for like the past 40 minutes. I'm gonna go take care of that. I'll see y'all later.